I'd always known my place in the Carter family, or at least I thought I did. That night, as I sat at the long oak table in our estate's dining room, surrounded by clinking glasses and the hum of laughter, I felt like I belonged. It was Mom's 50th anniversary dinner, a milestone that had Dad in rare form, orchestrating the evening like a maestro. My siblings, Emma and Ryan, were there with their spouses, cousins sprawled across extra chairs, and Grandma parked at the head, her wheelchair a silent anchor. I'd spent the day making sure everything was perfect, checking the caterers, adjusting the flowers, because that's who I was, the one who kept it all together. Dad stood up, his broad shoulders squared, his voice cutting through the chatter like a blade. "Everyone listen up," he boomed, holding his wine glass high. "We've got something big to celebrate. Next week, we're taking the entire family on a Mediterranean cruise." The room erupted. Emma squealed, Ryan clapped his husband on the back, and the cousins started shouting about beaches and boat drinks. I couldn't help it, I grinned, picturing the sun on my face, the ship slicing through blue waves. It sounded like a dream, a reward for all the years I'd held this family up. "What time's the departure?" I asked, leaning forward, already calculating what I'd need to pack. The words barely left my mouth before Dad's eyes locked onto mine. His smile didn't just fade, it twisted, sharpening into something I didn't recognize. "You don't know because you're not part of us," he said, his tone flat, final. "You can stay behind and take care of Grandma in the house." The air vanished from the room. My chest tightened, like someone had punched me square in the ribs. Emma stared at her plate, Ryan coughed into his napkin, and Mom just fiddled with her fork, avoiding me entirely. 20 pairs of eyes, and not one met mine. I'd been the one changing Grandma's meds, fixing the leaks, keeping this place running while they lived their lives, and now I wasn't even us? The word echoed in my head, slicing deeper each time. I could have crumbled right there, let the shame swallow me whole. But something snapped instead, a thin, brittle thread I'd been clinging to for years. I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud enough to make Ryan flinch, and stood. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I won't be here." Every head swiveled toward me. Dad's brow furrowed, but I didn't stop. "I just booked my own flight to Paris. Solo vacation." The lie came out smooth, like I'd planned it all along. I hadn't, my phone was still in my pocket untouched, but they didn't need to know that. Gasps rippled around the table. Emma's mouth dropped open, and one of the cousins muttered, "No way." Dad's face went red, his jaw clenching so hard I thought his teeth might crack. He wasn't used to anyone stealing his thunder, least of all me. "Sophie," Mom started, her voice small, but I didn't wait. I turned and walked out, my heels clicking on the hardwood, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't look back, not at the stunned silence, not at the family I'd spent my life trying to please. By the time I hit the front door, my hands were shaking, but my mind was racing. Paris. I'd said it out loud, so now I had to make it real. In my car, I pulled out my phone and opened the airline app. My fingers hovered over the screen, doubt creeping in. What was I doing? I'd never defied them like this, never put myself first. But then I saw Dad's face again, those cold eyes, that smug dismissal, and my thumb hit book. The confirmation chimed. Paris, 1 week from today. No going back. I drove to my apartment, the adrenaline still buzzing, and collapsed onto my couch. My phone lit up with texts, Emma asking if I was serious, Ryan saying Dad was pissed. But I ignored them. They didn't get it. This wasn't just about a trip. It was about every time I'd been invisible, every sacrifice they'd taken for granted. I'd spent 28 years being the good daughter, the reliable one, and in one sentence, Dad had erased me from the family portrait. But I wasn't erased yet. Paris was my chance, not just to get away, but to figure out who I was without them. As I stared at that flight confirmation, a flicker of something new sparked inside me. Not fear, not anger, defiance. They thought they could leave me behind, but I was already gone. And I had no idea what I'd find when I got there, or what I'd do next. I landed in Paris a week after that disastrous dinner, my suitcase rattling behind me as I stepped into a city that felt like a lifeline. I'd spent the flight replaying Dad's words, "You're not part of us," until they'd burned into my brain. But now, standing on French soil, I felt a rush of something I hadn't expected, freedom. No grandma to babysit, no family to appease, just me, Sophie Carter, for the first time in forever. I wasn't sure who that was yet, but I was damn well going to find out. The first few days were a blur of rebellion. I wandered Montmartre's winding streets, sketching street performers in a notebook I'd bought on impulse. I ate croissants by the Seine, flaky crumbs dusting my jeans, and stayed out late in jazz bars, letting the music drown out the echoes of that dining room. I didn't check my phone, no texts from Emma begging me to come back, no guilt trips from Mom. I'd turned it off after takeoff, and it stayed that way. This was my escape, my middle finger to the Carters, and I wasn't letting them ruin it. Then on day 4, everything changed. I ducked into a cramped bookstore near Notre Dame, its shelves sagging with dusty paperbacks. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just killing time before dinner, when my fingers brushed a worn leather journal tucked inside a random novel. It was thin, dog-eared, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. I flipped it open, more out of boredom than curiosity, and froze. The handwriting was Dad's, blocky, slanted, unmistakable. My stomach lurched as I read the first line. Asterisk January 12th, 1995. I can't tell Margaret. She'd leave me. Asterisk. I sank onto a stool in the corner, the journal trembling in my hands. Page after page, Dad's words spilled out a secret he'd buried deep. He'd had an affair with a woman named Claire, some artist he'd met on a business trip. She got pregnant, and he panicked. I paid her off, he wrote. Asterisk, told her to disappear. The kid's better off without me. Asterisk, the dates lined up with my birth year, 1996. My breath caught as the pieces clicked. Mom's evasiveness whenever I asked about my baby pictures, the way I'd never quite fit with Emma and Ryan's golden-haired perfection. Was I that kid? I stumbled out of the bookstore, the journal clutched to my chest, and found a cafe to process it. Over a black coffee I didn't taste, I read it again, searching for proof. There wasn't a name, no Sophie scrawled in the margins, but the math didn't lie. 9 months from that affair, and there I was, the oddball daughter nobody talked about. Dad hadn't just excluded me from the cruise. He'd been erasing me my whole life. The betrayal hit harder than that dinner ever could. I wasn't just the family scapegoat. I might have been his dirty little secret. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and powered it on for the first time in days. 17 missed calls, mostly from Emma, but I ignored them and dialed Noah, my cousin and the only Carter I still trusted. He picked up on the second ring, his voice groggy. Soph, you okay? It's like 3 a.m. Here. Noah, I need your help, I said, keeping my voice low. I found something, Dad's journal. He had an affair. There's a kid. I think it's me. Silence stretched on the line, then a sharp intake of breath. Holy, okay, slow down. You sure? He asked. I wasn't, not completely, but I needed answers. Can you dig into his old records? Anything from 95, 96? I need to know what he's hiding. Noah hesitated, then sighed. Yeah, I can poke around. Dad's got files in the attic, old tax stuff, maybe more. But Soph, if this is real, it's gonna blow everything up. I gripped the phone tighter. Good. Let it. He promised to call back in a couple days, and I hung up, staring at the journal like it might bite me. That night, I barely slept. My tiny hotel room felt like a cage, the journal glaring at me from the nightstand. I kept seeing Dad's face, his smug grin at the dinner, his cold dismissal, and now this. If I was that child, he hadn't just abandoned me once. He'd done it every day since, keeping me close enough to use but never enough to love. The anger started small, a flicker in my gut, but by morning it was a fire I couldn't put out. I didn't know what Noah would find, or if I'd even like the truth. But one thing was clear. Paris wasn't just an escape anymore. It was where I'd start fighting back. Dad thought he could write me out of the family, but he didn't know I'd just found the pen. Whatever came next, I wasn't running away, I was running toward something, and he wasn't going to like it one bit. I woke up in my Paris hotel room with a jolt. The journal still sprawled open on the bed beside me. It had been 2 days since I'd called Noah, and every hour felt like a countdown. I'd barely left the room, pacing between the window and the desk, my mind churning with what-ifs. Was I really Dad's secret kid from some long-ago affair? And if I was, what did that mean for everything I'd ever known? The anger I'd felt after finding the journal hadn't faded. It had grown claws, digging into me every time I thought of Dad's smug face at that dinner. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of it. Noah's name flashed on the screen, and I answered before it could ring twice. Soph, you sitting down, he said, his voice tight. My stomach dropped. Just tell me. I snapped, gripping the edge of the desk. He took a breath. I found stuff. Old bank statements hidden in a box labeled taxes. There's a trust fund, set up in 96, right after you were born. It's got your name on it, but the money's gone. Uncle James, he drained it. I sank onto the bed, the the words hitting like a slap. Drained it? How? Noah's voice sped up like he couldn't believe it either. Payments, transfers. Looks like he funneled it into his business accounts over the years. Millions, sophomore. That cruise they're on. Your money's probably paying for it. My vision blurred, fury and disbelief crashing together. The cruise, the one I wasn't part of, was floating on cash he'd stolen from me. There's more, Noah added. I found a letter from some lawyer saying the trust was for C's child. That's gotta be Claire, right? Your mom's not Claire. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Mom was Margaret, always had been. Claire was the ghost from the journal, the woman Dad had paid to vanish. And I was the loose end he'd kept around, close enough to control but never enough to claim. Send me everything, I said, my voice hard. Photos, scans, all of it. Noah promised he would, and I hung up, my hands shaking with something I couldn't name. Rage, maybe, or power. I opened my laptop and pulled up Emma's Instagram. There they were, the Carters, posting their perfect cruise life. Dad grinning on the deck, a cocktail in hand. Ryan and his husband posing against a sunset. Emma in a sundress, captioned asterisk, family time is the best time. Asterisk, I scrolled through the pics, each one twisting the knife deeper. They were sipping drinks and snapping selfies with money that should have been mine. Money Dad had lied and cheated to keep. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming fast. He thought he'd won, but he didn't know I was onto him. I needed a plan, something real, something that had hit him where it hurt. I grabbed my phone again and searched for lawyers in Paris, landing on a name, Claire Dubois. The irony wasn't lost on me. Same name as the woman from the journal, though it couldn't be her. I called her office, my French shaky but enough to book a meeting for the next day. If Noah's files held up, I had a case, fraud, theft, maybe more. I wasn't just some discarded kid anymore. I was a threat. That night, I sat on the hotel bed, Noah's emailed scans spread across the screen. Bank records with my name buried in fine print, withdrawals signed by Dad's looping signature. The letter from the lawyer was vaguer, just C's child and a promise of funds, but it was enough to connect the dots. I wasn't Margaret's daughter. I was Claire's. Mom had raised me, sure, but she'd known, or at least suspected, and let Dad bury the truth. The betrayal wasn't just his anymore, it was hers too. I met Claire Dubois the next morning in a sleek office near the Champs-Élysées. She was sharp, mid-40s, with a no-nonsense stare that made me feel like she could see right through me. I laid it all out, the journal, the trust, the scans Noah had sent. She skimmed the files, her pen tapping the desk, then looked up. If this is authentic, you've got him, she said in crisp English. Fraud, embezzlement, could be criminal charges. But we need originals, not copies. Can your cousin get them? I nodded. Noah would do it. He'd already risked enough sneaking around Dad's attic. Then we build, she said. And we hit fast. I left her office buzzing, my head spinning with possibilities. This wasn't just about the money. It was about tearing down the lie Dad had built my life on. I pictured him on that ship, oblivious, toasting his perfect family while I sharpened the knife. But doubt crept in too. What if the originals didn't hold up? What if he wriggled out of it like he always did? I pushed it down. I'd come too far to back off now. Back at the hotel, I refreshed Emma's Instagram again. A new post. The family docked in Santorini, white buildings gleaming behind them. Paradise found, she wrote. I stared at Dad's grin, his arm around Mom, and felt the fire reignite. Paradise? Not for long. I didn't know how I'd pull it off yet, but one thing was certain. They were sailing on borrowed time, and I was coming for everything they thought was theirs. I stood in my Paris hotel room, staring at the email from Noah that had just pinged my inbox. Attached were high-res scans of the originals, bank records, the lawyer's letter, even a notarized document with Dad's signature tying him to the trust. He'd messaged, asterisk, got these from the attic last night. Dad's gonna kill me if he finds out. Be careful, sophomore. Asterisk, I smirked, my pulse racing. Careful wasn't an option anymore. I was past that line, and Dad was about to feel the fallout. Claire Dubois had everything she needed. We'd spent the last 2 days prepping, her sharp mind slicing through the evidence like a blade. We've got fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, she'd said, her pen circling key dates. The trust was yours, irrefutable. He diverted it illegally. She'd drafted a claim to freeze his assets and a criminal complaint for embezzlement, but I wanted more than a courtroom win. I wanted him to squirm, to see his perfect world crack in front of everyone. So I'd pitched an idea, leak it to the press. Claire raised an eyebrow, then grinned. Bold. I like it. I'd tracked down a British tabloid with a Paris stringer. Asterisk the Daily Pulse star. Over a grainy video call, I'd fed them the story. James Carter, American millionaire, stole millions from his secret daughter's trust to fund a lavish family cruise. I sent them Noah's scans, the journal pages, everything but my name. I wasn't ready to be the face yet. They ate it up, promising a front-page splash timed for when the cruise docked in Santorini. "This'll blow up," the reporter said, practically salivating. I hung up, my hands sweaty. It was done. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing Dad on that ship, oblivious, sipping champagne while the bomb I'd planted ticked closer to zero. I checked Emma's Instagram obsessively. New posts from the cruise popped up every few hours. The family lounging by the pool, Mom in a wide-brimmed hat, Dad laughing with a cigar. "Living our best life," Ryan captioned one. I wanted to scream at the screen. Asterisk, that's my life you're living. Asterisk instead, I waited, the tension coiling tighter with every minute. The morning of the Santorini docking, I woke to a text from Claire. Asterisk, it's live. Check the link. Asterisk, I clicked it, and there it was on the Daily Pulse website. Asterisk, Tycoon's secret daughter unmasks cruise of deceit. Asterisk, the article laid it all bare. Dad's affair, the trust, the theft, with grainy scans of his signature plastered across the page. My phone buzzed again. Noah. Soph, it's everywhere. Twitter's exploding. You okay? I typed back, better than okay, and hit refresh. The story was trending, comments piling up. What a scumbag. Poor kid. Asterisk, Carter's done. Asterisk. I pulled up a live webcam of Santorini's port, the ship gliding in just as the sun climbed higher. I imagined the scene, Dad stepping off, expecting a quiet day of sightseeing, only to find chaos waiting. My phone rang, his name flashing across the screen. I let it ring twice, savoring it, then answered. "Sophie, what the hell have you done?" he roared, his voice ragged. I could hear shouts in the background, cameras clicking. "You've ruined us." "You ruined yourself," I said, calm as ice. "That cruise? My money. That life. Built on lies. Enjoy the spotlight, Dad." He sputtered. "You little, come home, we'll fix this." But I hung up, cutting him off mid-sentence. He didn't get to beg, not after what he'd taken. Noah called next, breathless. "Soph, it's insane." Paparazzi swarmed them at the dock. Emma's crying, Ryan's yelling at Uncle James, Aunt Margaret just walked off. It's a mess. I closed my eyes, picturing it, Dad's empire crumbling, the family fracturing under the weight of his secrets. "Good," I said. "Let it burn." Claire texted an hour later. Asterisk, legal papers served. Trust assets frozen pending review. He's cornered. Asterisk, I leaned back against the hotel wall, a strange calm settling over me. I'd done it, hit him where it hurt most, his wallet, his image, his control. But it wasn't over. The tabloid hadn't named me, but they would eventually, and I'd have to face that. Plus, Mom, had she known all along? The thought twisted in my gut, but I shoved it aside. One reckoning at a time. I refreshed the webcam feed. Tourists milled around the port, but the ship was quiet now, the Carters likely holed up inside, scrambling to respond. My phone lit up again, Emma this time. "Sophie, how could you?" her voicemail whined. "Dad's a wreck. Come home." I deleted it without a second thought. Home wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine to redefine. I'd won this round, but I wasn't naive. Dad would fight back, he always did. Lawyers, spin, maybe even a counterattack. I'd lit the match, and the fire was spreading fast. As I stared at that empty dock, a question gnawed at me. How far was I willing to go? Because this wasn't just revenge anymore. It was war, and I had no idea what I'd lose before it was over. I watched the wreckage unfold from my hotel room in Paris. The city humming outside like it didn't know my world had just flipped upside down. It had been a week since the Santorini bombshell, and the fallout was still raining down. The Daily Pulse kept churning out updates, Dad's lawyers scrambling, Mom spotted at a divorce attorney's office, Emma and Ryan dodging cameras like fugitives. Twitter was a battlefield, hashtags like #CarterCrash trending alongside blurry photos of Dad shouting at reporters. I'd started it all, and now it was spinning out of control. Part of me wanted to feel guilty, but every time I tried, I saw his face at that dinner. "You're not part of us," and the guilt evaporated. Noah kept me in the loop, his texts a lifeline to the chaos. "Uncle James is toast," he wrote one morning. "Assets frozen, feds sniffing around. Aunt Margaret's out, she filed yesterday." I stared at the message, letting it sink in. Mom leaving Dad wasn't a shock, she'd always bent to his will, but even she had a breaking point. I wondered if she'd known about me, about Claire, all those years. I'd probably never get a straight answer, and maybe I didn't need one. She hadn't called, hadn't texted. That silence said enough. Claire Dubois called me that afternoon, her voice crisp over the line. "It's done, Sophie. The trust's yours. Court ruled in your favor. $3 million, give or take, after legal fees. Carter's fighting, but he's got no legs to stand on." $3 million. The number hit me like a brick, but not because of the money itself. It was mine all along, stolen from me before I even knew I existed. "What's next?" I asked. She paused. "You live. He doesn't own you anymore." I hung up, staring at the wall. Live. I hadn't known how to do that until now. I didn't waste time. I found a real estate agent online and snagged a small apartment in the 5th arrondissement. White walls, a tiny balcony, a view of rooftops stretching toward the Eiffel Tower. It wasn't flashy, not like Dad's estate, but it was mine. I signed the papers with the trust money, my hands steady as I scrawled my name. No co-signers, no strings, just Sophie Carter starting over. I moved in 3 days later, a suitcase and a few boxes all I needed. The first night, I sat on the floor with a glass of wine, no furniture yet, and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. The family didn't take it quietly, of course. Emma left voicemails, her tone swinging between sobs and fury. "You destroyed us, sophomore. How could you?" Ryan sent one text, *, "You're dead to me." *, I deleted them both, no hesitation. They'd toasted on that cruise with my money, never once asking why I wasn't there. Dad was the architect, but they'd been complicit, happy to play along as the checks cleared. I didn't know them tears. Then, a week after the move, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Come home. We need to talk." I laughed out loud, the sound echoing off my bare walls. Home. He still thought he could summon me, like I was the same girl who'd sat quietly at his table. I pictured him, alone now, his empire gutted, his family scattered, typing that message from some sterile hotel room. I held my thumb over his number, then blocked it. No reply, no explanation. Just silence. "Bon voyage, Dad," I whispered, and that was that. I stood on my balcony that evening, coffee in hand, watching the Eiffel Tower glow against the dusk. The city stretched out below, alive and indifferent, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was running. I'd spent 28 years being the Carter family's glue, fixing, forgiving, fading, until they'd cut me loose. But I hadn't fallen, I'd flown. The journal, the trust, the tabloid, it wasn't just revenge. It was me clawing my way to the surface, breathing air they'd never given me. I wasn't naive. Dad might regroup, slink back with some new scheme. The siblings might circle, looking for scraps. But I'd built something here, a life, a line in the sand, and I'd fight for it if I had to. For now, though, I let myself rest. I sipped my coffee, the tower's lights flickering, and felt the weight lift. I wasn't their daughter, their sister, their scapegoat anymore. I was just Sophie, and that was enough. And that's it. My story of breaking free and taking back what's mine. If you loved this ride, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments,